Hi, we are going to talk about how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. Um, First of all, I need to mention that not every problem we are going to do here using the quadratic formula requires a quadratic formula. Some of these problems can be done by using other methods such as factoring, for example, but we are going to focus on the quadratic formula. So what do we need to know? First of all, there's something called a standard form of a quadratic equations, which is right there. X squared plus bx plus c equals 0. This is the quadratic formula. So a, b, and c in the formula will be numbers that you are actually going to pull from the equation. Let's take a look at the first problem and try to figure it out. By the way, I have examples 1 through 4 that do not go above algebra 1, but you know, if you take an algebra 2 or a higher level course, that's still fine. So we need to figure out a, b, and c. So a is the number in front of x squared, that's 1. B is the number in front of x, which is 2, and b is the constant, c is the constant, which is negative 8. So we're going to, here's the formula, here's this. X equals negative b, so it's the opposite of b. So b is 2, it's going to put negative 2 plus minus square root 2 squared. I always recommend putting this number in parentheses, minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So what we're going to do now is we have to work through that, and the very first thing you need to do is what's under the square root. So negative 2 plus minus, what do we have here? 4. That's negative 4 times 1 times negative 8, that's plus 32 over 2. So negative 2 plus or minus square root of 36. Well, we lucked out. This is a perfect square, which is nice. So we are going to get negative 2 plus or minus 6 divided by 2. So, as you hopefully remember, when you solve quadratic equations, you expect two solutions most of the time. So where do you get 2? Well, this is where you're going to get them. Negative 2 plus 6 over 2, negative 2 minus 6 over 2. So negative 2 plus 6 over 2, that's going to give us negative 2 plus 6 is 4, 4 divided by 2 is 2. And the other one's going to be negative 2 minus 6 over 2. Negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8, divided by 2 is negative 4. So we have 2 and negative 4. Next problem. X squared plus 5 equals 5x. Please be careful, it's not in standard form. We need to have it in standard form first. So we're going to subtract 5x. We're going to rewrite that as negative x squared minus 5x plus 5 equals 0. Okay. So let's identify a, b, and c. I hope you can see them, that a is 1, b is negative 5, and c is positive 5. I do need to address one important thing here. In the quadratic formula, it has negative b plus or minus. Let me show you this really quick. This means the opposite of b. So whatever b is, you're going to take the opposite of that, because you don't want to make that mistake. So opposite of negative 5 is positive 5, plus or minus square root. Negative 5 squared minus 4ac over 2a. 5 plus or minus square root. Negative 5 squared is 25. This will give you minus 4 times 1 times 5 minus 20, right? Over 2. So what do we get here? 5 plus or minus square root of 5 over 2. Well, here square root of 5 is something that you can't really do anything with. You're just going to leave it like that. So our solutions here will be 5 plus square root of 5 over 2 and 5 minus square root of 5 over 2. This next problem. First, let's make sure is it in standard form. Yes, equals 0. So a is 3, b is 5, c is negative 2. By the way, you don't need to write them out like I do. I'm just doing this so you can see them, but you know, you can just, if you know where they are, you can just plug them in. So x equals negative b, that's the opposite of b, it's negative 5, plus or minus square root of 5 squared minus 4 a, and c is negative 2 over 2 times a, that's 3, right? So if we continue here, put a little box here, negative 5 plus or minus square root, that's 25 plus, what do we have here, 4 times 3, 12 times negative 2 is 424, right? So it's going to end up being plus 24 because 2 negatives over 6, and that's going to give us negative 5 plus or minus 49 divided by 6, and 49 is a perfect square. Let me finish this here. Negative 5 plus or minus 7 over 6. So that's going to give us two numbers. Negative 5 plus 7 over 6. Negative 5 plus 7, that's 2 over 6, which can simplify to 1/3. And the other solution will be negative 5 minus 7 over 6, which is negative 12 over 6. That's negative 2, right? And then we have 1/3 and negative 2. As I always say, it doesn't matter what order you put those numbers in, they are going to be exactly, this solution is not going to change. Okay, there's one more. Here we have this one. So it's not in standard form, as you can see. Let's rewrite it in standard form. A is 2, B is negative 8, C is negative 3. So x equals negative b, opposite of negative 8 is 8, plus or minus square root negative 8 squared minus 4ac all over 2a, right? So we have 8 plus or minus square root of 64. That's going to be minus and minus, so plus 4 times 8, I'm sorry, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 3 is 24, all over 4. That's going to give us 8 plus or minus square root of 88 over 4. Well, 88 is not a perfect square, but you can simplify because 88 is 4 times 22. So you can rewrite that as 8 plus or minus 2 square root of 22 divided by 4. Can't do anything else here, but we can divide both numbers here by 2. Well, all three numbers there. Do not touch the square root ever. So this can simplify to 8 divided by 2 is 4. Plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1. That's just going to leave you with the square root of 22. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. That's what we're getting. I'm just going to have to write it like this. So it's going to be 4 plus square root of 22 over 2. And 4 minus square root of 22 over 2. Okay. All right. A couple problems that are going to be algebra 2 and above. But I do have another example after that. So x squared minus 2x plus 5 equals 0. I'm not going to write a, b, and c. So x equals, opposite of b is 2 plus or minus square root negative 2 squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So it's going to be 2 plus or minus square root of 4 minus 20 over 2, which is 2 plus or minus square root of negative 16 over 2. Square root of negative 16 is 4i, so 2 plus or minus 4i over 2, and both numbers can be divided by 2. So we are going to get 1 plus 2i and 1 minus 2i, right? And then this next problem here, 2x squared plus minus 5x plus 5, x equals 5 plus or minus square root of negative 5 squared minus 4ac over 2a. That's 5 plus or minus square root of 25 minus, that's going to give us 40 over 4. So that's going to give us 5 plus or minus square root of negative 15, which is going to give us I. That's going to give us 5 plus or minus I square root of 15 over 4. We can't really simplify square root of 15, but we do get two solutions here. 5 plus I square root of 15 over 4 and 5 minus I square root of 15 over 4. Okay, so we have one more thing left, which is an application problem, and that one is going to be some of the uses of quadratic functions. So a ball is thrown from the top of the building. Its height can be determined by this expression, where t is the number of seconds since the ball is in the air and how many seconds will it hit the ground. First of all, to hit the ground, what is going to be the height? I hope you all understand the height will be 0, right? Because since this represents the height above the ground. So when the height is 0, it's going to hit the ground. So we're going to set up negative 16t squared plus 14t plus 300 equals 0. Well, in this case, t equals negative 14 plus or minus square root of 14 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times 300 over 2 times negative 16. I did grab a calculator here because it's, the numbers are kind of high. So we have 14 squared, and that's going to give us plus a total of, which is going to be 19,000. So this is going to be negative 14 plus or minus square root of 19,396 divided by negative 32. You have to be very careful with signs here. The square root, and this is where we're going to have to go with an approximation. Well, let me actually do it another way. So we have negative 14 plus square root of 19,396 over negative 32. And the other number is going to be negative 14 minus square root of 19,396 over negative 32. One of these numbers is going to turn out to be negative. We're not going to use this. So let me punch it in. So this first number here is going to be negative 3.9, which the context of the problem implies the number has to be positive. We can't use that. So for the other number, we are going to get for this number we're going to get 4.789, so for about 4.8 seconds. And that is going to be our answer. Okay, so I hope this helps.